This is part 4, and we'll talk about what we covered in the past. So that YouTube series that you're hearing about, if you've missed some of these, you can find it there. We'll get you some links in just a minute, but we'll talk about what we've learned so far and what we're going to learn today.
That's great. So today we are going to, topic for today is templates and template parts. And if this is your first time here, you're kind of diving into the middle, but hopefully you'll still get something out of it. And as Sarah mentioned, we have all of our previous sessions in the series posted to my YouTube channel. And we'll get a link to that hopefully get a link to the series in the chat, but also it's on we add those links to each session's description on Meetup. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started with a question just to get everybody thinking. And I'd like to hear from you all, either in the chat or with your voice if you like. What do you think of when you hear the word templates, particularly template as in a WordPress template? And we can see what everyone thinks of that. And then after we've got maybe a few answers or ideas, then I'll tell you something that maybe makes sense to me based on my experience with WordPress. So we have, let's see, just make this a little bigger so I can see more chat. A template is something repeatable. I think that's a good thing, something you might use again and again, something to adapt to my own use, possibly. A pattern. Yeah, pattern is a pretty specific word in WordPress as we move into full site editing. And they're a little different from templates. Template to me means a layout that is more specific than a generic page or post. Robert says single, post, etc. A template could be a pre-made part of a website. A template is something to start with. The layout of where you want blocks to appear. I like that one. I like the idea of repeatable. It's something that already exists that I can experiment with, something I can use rather than starting from scratch. We have a design format standard, a matrix through which content is presented. A WordPress templates were in files. Not sure if how it works for FSC. And design files which specify how your site is displayed. Those are all really great. Like there's truth in all of these things. So for me, coming from a long time theme development standpoint, template from a WordPress theme standpoint was all of the files that make up your website. And the templates are used in different ways by WordPress. They would have been things like an index, which is going to be like the default homepage for your website, and it's the fallback for everything. So when we hear template, sometimes it can mean a few different things. And even within the WordPress context, sometimes template can mean different things depending on where you are at in the system. So, but from a theme standpoint, your template is basically the building blocks that are going to make up each of the main views of your site. And then you can actually also have custom templates that would be used in specific scenarios. So when we move into full site editing and block theming, we're just changing the paradigm a little bit, and where we used to create our template files in our theme with PHP files, now we're actually creating them with HTML files. So, but basically all of the concepts are the same. Where WordPress looks for the template that's going to be used on any given view is basically the same. And we're going to look at what that hierarchy looks like. So let's go ahead and move forward. Let's start with a little housekeeping. One is that this meeting is being recorded, and I will be sharing the link to my YouTube channel, and also it will be posting it to in a comment on this meetup's description. So if you want to go back to the previous meetings or watch it again, you should be able to do that. or if you want to share it with someone, then that's a good way to do it. If you're concerned about your video being in the recording, feel free to turn off video sharing. This is a safe space for discussion. So, and we're all learning together here. So please feel free to add your thoughts, ask questions, whether it's via voice or in the chat box. And if you know the answer to a question, the one that you hear or that you see in the chat box, feel free to answer it, and then we can discuss. All right, so far in the series, we've covered a lot of ground. So we talked about how to install WordPress locally just as a starting point so that we could get started with creating a theme. We looked at how to navigate and examine a WordPress site's theme files, how to create a child theme folder so that we can just start with this with the smallest amount of code possible. We looked at how to change some colors and other settings in theme.json, and also supports presets and styles. We looked a little bit at CSS custom properties and how they're used in theme.json, and then we moved in a little bit more into the style section of theme.json. So for today, we are going to be taking a look at using the site editor as a development tool. So where we would think of creating a WordPress theme as a lot of manual coding into a text editor, and needing to know some PHP and understanding the WordPress API. With full site editing and block themes, we have the ability to create most of our stuff right from within WordPress. So we're going to be using WordPress to build the site, and then it'll be functional as it is. But what we'll do at the end, when we feel like we have everything that we need, we will export all the files that will give us most of what we need to create the theme. So there are a few things that we have to have the files in place for, but the majority of it, we're all going to be working from within the site editor. So we will next look at an overview of the WordPress template system, often referred to as the template hierarchy. There's a really cool chart that we're going to take a look at that kind of walks us through it. Creating templates in the site editor and creating template parts in the site editor, and we'll talk about what those are. And then creating a template. We're going to create a template with a header, footer, and a sidebar, and also, of course, our content area, so that we can see how it all works. And then if we have time at the end, we'll see. We might look at the export process and see what comes out when we do an export. So let's talk templates. I want to go ahead and switch over to our template hierarchy here.
Before we get started, Daisy, just as a reminder for me, we have a child theme set up, right? Like we did that in the very first of these sessions. Will all of this be still contained within that child theme?
Yes. Well, so what we're going to be creating will be within WordPress. And then what we will ultimately export and we will place into our child theme. Okay. All right. So I'm hoping that you can see what's up on my screen. If I need to zoom in a little bit, we can do that, and I can move around the screen so that we can see it. But basically, this is a visualization of the WordPress template hierarchy. You will notice that all of the orange and dark blue blocks and the green ones, so it's kind of color coded, all have PHP at the end. A lot of this is actually going to end up being HTML files when you're working with the block theme. But you can have actually a hybrid scenario where maybe you're adding some block theme elements to a classic theme, and you might get a mix. Okay, so, but generally speaking, all of the dark gray things are the main like types of views that WordPress generates. So you at the top, we've got our archive. So we've got our general archive, and then that gets broken down into some subcategory type archives, like our author category, a custom post type archive, taxonomy archives, date archives, tag archives. And you can actually drill down and get more and more specific as you go from left to right on this chart. So the idea is that it looks for the thing that's the closest to the left, and it doesn't find it, then it goes over one, and then it'll go over one, and until it finds the file it's looking for. And ultimately, if it doesn't find any of the more specific things, it's going to default to index. So your index is necessary. It has to be there because that's the fallback for everything else. So for a classic theme, the index.ht or index.php would be used. We still have to have that for a block theme. It has to be present because WordPress looks for it, but there's probably not going to be anything in there if you're working with the block theme. And if there's a index.html in the templates directory of your theme, then it's going to use that as the default fallback rather of your website. So any of the times where these dark gray things are being used and there's nothing more specific that's being available for WordPress to look for, it's going to fall back to that. So the dark blue items are primarily what we will have access to create from within WordPress. So the index, the only change is that you're converting these to from PHP to HTML. You don't actually have to convert anything. We're just going to generate the HTML files out of WordPress. So the index.html file is already going to be in your theme probably, because in order for it to see it as a block theme, that file has to be in your templates directory. It doesn't have to have anything in it though. So we will build what goes into it from within WordPress, which is kind of an interesting thing. You can create these empty files and then edit them, what they're going to ultimately contain from within WordPress. And we will look at that in a moment. We also can do things like archive, and like a single and page in the editor right now is kind of combined into one for singular, which we'll look at. And then you can do a front page rather than a home, 404, and search. So we will give that all a look. So is there any other, are there any questions so far about what this looks like?
Yeah, so just to clarify, when you say dark blue, I think you're talking about the columns on the right that are archive, single.php, .php. So those three there are the dark blue. Okay, there's not a lot of distinction there. So thank you for clarifying.
Yes, I can see that if it's depending on how small it looks to you, because I'm seeing it all on a very large screen, so it's a little easier for me to tell.
Yeah.
And if you're on this page and you scroll down, there's actually a pretty detailed article that walks through a lot of what this, how it all works. So if you're interested, I'd say give it a read. It has not been updated for block themes, but it kind of gives you an idea of how WordPress makes the decision about which template to use in any given scenario. Definitely a good resource. All right. So let's go over, I'm going to go over to my WordPress site. Let me see. Yeah. Okay. So before the session, right now I have our child theme activated, which is what we've been working on up till now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to this new theme. It's an almost completely empty theme called Starter that I created today. And what I want to demonstrate is just what the site editor is going to look like if you don't have any templates already in your theme other than the index.html. So let me zoom this in a little bit because I know it's probably not looking very big for you all. Okay, so I'm in the dashboard right now, and in the sidebar, I'm going to go to Appearance and then Editor. So Starter is not a child theme. This is actually a basically empty theme. There's not a whole lot going on in here right now. So I'm in the site editor, and then if I go to templates, the only thing I have here is index. And if I actually clear my customizations and then go in to edit the index, you'll see there's nothing here. It's completely empty. the HTML file in my theme has nothing in it. But what I can do is I can actually start creating this template. So if I wanted to start with a header, oops, I can create this template part. And we're going to talk a little bit about what template parts are in just a few minutes. And then I can start adding blocks within that. So I could say, I just want a title here, which is going to be a heading. Actually, no, I don't want a heading. In my header, I would want my site title most likely. So I'm going to add in a site title. Okay, and this is the site title that's set for my site. So now I've created a header for my site, which I can reuse on additional templates. It's pretty boring, but that is. I see a question. So is there any theme.json or style.css or functions.php in Starter? Yes, there is. So let me go ahead and move this over. Let's see. Got it open here on the side. Just need to get the window moved over so you all can see it. Get that a big. All right. So this is my starter theme. So what I have in here is index.html in the templates directory, which is empty. I have a parts directory, which is where I will ultimately put my template parts, things like header, footer, sidebars, those kinds of things. My index.php is completely empty as well. It has to be there because WordPress needs it in order for it to be seen as a valid theme. Also, the same thing for style.css. At the moment, the only thing that's in here is the bare minimum of what WordPress needs in order to see this as a theme at all, which is the theme name. And then my theme.json file exists, but I haven't added anything to it yet. So basically, it's just like the most bare bones theme you can possibly imagine. There's no actual content. In fact, if I go to this front page right now, the only thing that's going to show up is this, the Block Themes SLS. It won't have any content at all, even though there actually is content available to display on the site. So if you, I apologize if this all feels a little bit like random. So I might end up jumping around just a little bit when I think I've skipped something that is important. So in the sidebar of the site editor, which I've just expanded out to the left, it's a dark background. We have three things. We have the site, we have templates, and the template parts. The site editor is basically a block editor where you're editing an entire view. And you can see up in the upper or in the middle of the top, it says index. You can actually access other templates as well. And so this is going to be an indicator of which template you're editing right now. On the next one down is templates, and this is going to list all of the templates that are on your site right now. Because this is my starter theme, which doesn't have any other templates, the only thing that's going to be here is that index. And then template parts will be the template, like the header, footer, sidebars that you've created or that have been added to your theme. Okay, so what I wanted to start with was just creating this index. So that's why we added this header. And then usually the next thing that you would do, let's say we were going to do a full width site that had no sidebars, just to keep things simple as we start. The next thing that we're going to want to do is add our query loop. And what the query is going to do in this view is going to be like to just display whatever should display here. So if it's an archive, it's going to display the recent posts. If it's a single, like a single page or a single post, it's just going to display that one post information. So I just typed query in here, and I'm going to choose query loop. And when you choose query loop, what you're going to get is it's going to insert the block with some starter information here. So going across this, the menu area here, what we see first in the middle is the carousel view. This is a pattern. It's a pattern that has been added by WordPress that is used to like fill in all of the starter settings for this query loop. So it's going to have all of the design controls set. It's going to have everything is going to be like set the way that this is with the inner blocks. There is also an option to switch to a grid view. So you select the one that you want. You can actually navigate through the options. So I don't have any extra options in the grid view. It's just giving me this one. But if I go to the carousel view, then I can actually navigate through some options. So you can see how they have some different layouts. Sometimes there's the featured image, sometimes there's not. In this case, we've got an excerpt and it's showing 3 across. The other option that you can choose any of these and click choose. The other option you have is to start blank. And I'm going to go ahead and click start blank. And then the next thing you see after you click start blank is some options to just some starter content that doesn't have very much going on in it. But basically you say, do I just want the title and date? Do I want title and excerpt, title, date and excerpt, image, date and excerpt, image, date and title. So I'm going to choose image, date and title. And what that did is it's populated this with posts that are on my site and some basic blocks. So if we go back to the list view, you can see what goes in there. So inside the query loop is a post template. Inside the post template are all the details about individual posts. So for each post in this loop, I'm going to get a featured image, a post date, and a post title. And then outside of that post template at the bottom, it added the pagination block, which with the different types of pagination already placed as inner blocks. So Sarah says, this reminds me of building things with Legos. The site editor is like the completed Lego project. The template might be the big chunks of Legos I've stuck together in advance. And the template parts seem like the individual Legos themselves, one I can shape and change to fit my uses. Yeah, I think that sounds accurate. There are a lot of different pathways you can take here. So we're just taking one pathway right now. Once this is placed in your template, you can then go ahead and start configuring it the way that you like. Whatever you configure here is going to get exported. So it's going to override anything that's in your theme.json file. So if you set a color or a font or anything from here, it's going to carry forward separately from what you've placed into your theme.json. So for most things, I would say that design controls you don't want to use while you're creating the site initially. You would want to save that for later when you're editing your theme.json to include all of the styles defaults. From there, that way it takes precedent. It's what comes in initially, and then you don't have to go and edit every template to have those settings. There's a question about, can we use custom post types and fields within the query editor? So if you were creating a query and you wanted to pull in custom post types, let's say you had a home page and you wanted a section that was going to pull in a portfolio, and you have portfolio posts, you've already registered your post type, and you have portfolio posts present, you could actually set the query loop to pull in that post type. Let's see if I can demonstrate that. So down here under settings in the right side, we can select the post type, and the only ones that are going to list here are the post types that are available. So we would be able to create a query of a post type. All right. And then, of course, if you created the specific template file for that post type, that will be used. Okay, so now that we've got our header, we've got our content, and let's go ahead and add a footer at the end. So I'm going to use the main inserter, and now I'm going to type footer. And a footer here is actually a template part, but it's a template part specifically used for footer areas. So it's listed separately. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'm going to create a new footer. And so now at the bottom of the page, I've got an empty footer. I can just call it footer. And hit create. And let's say I'm going to create this with a menu. I think it's called navigation. Ooh, where did everything go? Okay, so I'm going to add a navigation to this. And I'm going to click add all pages just to get some starter content in there. And that is one of the options that you have, is to create a menu that just automatically adds all of your pages to it. And what it is it's actually a single block that's a list page list block. It's not individual links. So I think in most cases, you probably wouldn't actually do this unless you have a very simple site. Okay, so we can say that this is basically our index. It's fully functional. So when you save this, it's saving all of the components of this template, which are the whole template, the header template part, and the footer template part, because we made changes to all three of these things, and it's letting us select whether we want to save all of them or just some of them. And in this case, I do want to save all three, so I'm going to click save. And then I can go to the front of this website. Oops. Okay, and it looks pretty gigantic, but here we have our header that just has the theme name that's linked back to the home page. We have our featured image, and it's showing us all of our posts, recent posts. And then at the very bottom, we've got our pagination that will let us page through. And then I have the menu at the bottom. Now, obviously, this is very unstyled. We probably would not want to have a website that looked like this, but it does show all of the components. And if I, if I actually zoom it back to regular, it just made the images even bigger than they were. So, all right. Let's see. You have a picture and a title. Where are these? So this is showing recent posts. So if I go back to the template editor, I think I made this too big. You can see that for each post that should be showing on your homepage, when you're showing recent posts, it's showing these three items for it. And if I go back to my dashboard here and go into posts, you can see that these are the posts that are present on my site, and those are the ones that are being used. So if I go into one of these posts, you'll see that I have a featured image set, and that's the image that's being pulled in. All right. The block theme SLS is the site title. So there are a couple things you can do here. One is you can go into settings in general, and I can change that site title here and save it. And now if I reload this, it changed it here. So it's a block that's pulling that site title. The other thing I could do is actually go in and edit it here. in the block itself. And now if I hit save, it's going to say, do you want to save your title? Because that's the element that's being saved. And if I go back to the home page again now we see the word changed there. So that's kind of how that block, it's that specific block will work. All right, so there's a question that I think is a really good next step to move to, and that is, can you set the header and footer for the entire site and just tweak it for different posts and pages? So what you'll do is you'll end up with a template that kind of has your structure that you will typically use, and then you'll probably duplicate it. So you can create the file and then copy it and then change the name of the file to be appropriate for what it's going to be, and then start making changes to the blocks. Or let's see, if I go into templates, then it doesn't seem like there's a good way to just duplicate from the template editor, which would be a great plugin if anyone wanted to create one, to be able to duplicate a template from within here. So let's see. One thing to note here is that when you're in the template or template part list, it's going to show you where that template or template part was added. In this case, we see that the index was added by our starter theme, which is just named starter. And the little blue dot indicates that it's been customized. So we started from that starter template. That file does exist in the theme, but then we changed it. So what's actually being used by the site is being used from the site's database and not from the file. So, and that's what this blue dot indicates. And then if you ever want to clear that customization out and go back to what the file had, you can click clear customizations, but be aware that all your changes that you made from within WordPress to that template are going to go away. So you wouldn't want to do that unless you were sure you really wanted to go back. When we export files, we would then want to clear our customization so that we can start fresh from what's in the files. All right, so what I would like to do now is go back to our 2022 child theme that we have been working with. I started from that blank theme because I just wanted to, actually, before I do that, change my mind. All right, so I'm back in the site editor again. And what I want to do is go into templates, and I want to show you which templates you can actually create if they don't already exist in the theme. So when you click add new from the templates file or templates view, you can see which types of templates you can create from here. We can create a front page, which is going to basically be used as the site's homepage in place of index. Index then could potentially be used to display posts. We can create a single page, which actually will apply to both pages and posts. It's like the singular.php, if you're familiar with that, that hierarchy that we looked at before. It says page here, but it's really a page or a post. We can create an archive, which is going to be a general archive that will be used for anything other than index. We can create a search results template, and we can create a 404 template. The 404 is kind of interesting to me because in the past, there was no way to create one from within WordPress without a plugin. So you could always add the 404.php to your theme, but now we can actually create it even if one doesn't exist. It's kind of cool. The same for search. That wasn't something that you could create from within WordPress either. So all right, so those are the ones that you can actually create from here. But if your theme has other templates in it, then you can actually edit them and then export them again from the editor. So that's Now I'm going to go ahead and activate that 2022 child theme. Now, my 2022 child theme doesn't have all of the templates that we're going to see because it's a child theme. It's going to show everything that came in from the child theme. And also, if it doesn't exist in the child theme, it's going to pull the things that are in the parent theme, which is 2022. All right, so now we're going to go back to the editor. And the changes that we made are not being used now. So those custom templates are attached to the theme that we had activated before. And now we're actually seeing this 2022 child themes templates starting with home, because this theme has a home.html template. That's what we see first. So now if I go into templates, we're going to see all the templates that are in this theme. So starting at the top of the list, we have our single post, which is going to be called single.html. And it's been added by the 2022 child, but that file actually exists in 2022 because it's going up the chain. We have a page, which is a single page. You'll see here before we only had page, but it was going to apply to both singles and pages. This is going to be specific for the actual page post type. We have our index, which is going to be pulling in from the index.html file. We have home, which is going to be home.html. And you can see here it says displays as the site's home page or as the posts page when a static home page isn't set. So it's very similar to the index.html, but it's so that you can you can use it as a page template on your page, and you can set it as the static page. We have a page with no separators. So that's just it's like a custom page template that you can apply like we've always been able to in WordPress. If your themes in the past have had custom page templates that you set in the page attributes section, that's where this would be used. We have a 404 page template. We have a blank template. We have a single post template with no separators. So in the past, in order to use custom templates on a post versus a page, it required a plugin. There was no way to do that easily from within WordPress. But now we can actually create these template files and enable them for other post types, which is very cool. We have our search results. We have a page with a large header. That's another custom page. And then there's an archive template that would be used for things like categories, tags, authors, dates. So, and these are all, if you look down this list, these are all being pulled in, it says from 2022 child. So that's our active theme. So these are all based on files rather than database, because we don't see any of those blue dots. So if we go into one of these, let's go into the 404. So we can go down the screen and see what they put into the 404. So we'll open up list view so we can see what blocks we've got. The first thing we see, the first block in the list is a header block, which is a template part. Then we have a group, a row with another row inside of it to hold the site logo and site title. And then the navigation with a page list in it. And then down outside of this template part, I can collapse that down to show that that's the end of what's in the template part. We can go into the content area, which is a group with a group inside of it. And then we have a heading that says 404, a paragraph that has some text, and then a search box so that you can search for content. And then below that is the footer. So the header and the footer are both template parts. So if we go out to the site editor sidebar, we can go to template parts and see the template parts that are added by this theme, which are header dark small, footer, header, and header dark large. So you can see we have 3 options for headers. So if we actually go back into a template, we can actually select the header here, and I can replace it with a different one, and it shows me which ones are available. So if we wanted to have multiple headers on our site, this is a way that we could actually do this. All right. How are we doing on time? Got about 20 minutes left. So let's go ahead and move over to the chat box and I'll try to catch up on some questions. Or comments. So Lisa says, I've had success with query loop block to display all of the custom post types without narrowing down with any taxonomy or adding custom fields. So it sounds like you're having some trouble getting a taxonomy to work with a custom post type. So that's a bit about how the custom post type and the taxonomies are registered, which is a little outside of the scope of this, but from the themes perspective, if you're looking at the hierarchy here, you would want to go down to, if you have your archive and you follow the line over to custom post type archive, you also have custom taxonomy archive. So there are two options. The custom post type archive is just going to show all of that post type. The custom taxonomy archive is going to show all of the content that's associated with that taxonomy. So it isn't necessarily always going to be specific to a single post type, but generally when you create a custom taxonomy, you're going to assign it to one post type. So then you would go to taxonomy, the specific term within that taxonomy for an archive, and then you would go to the taxonomy type, the name of the actual taxonomy for the archive, and then you would go out to a general taxonomy template. And then from there, it would go to archive and then index. So that's kind of like the hierarchy. That's the order that WordPress is going to look for the files for, or the templates within WordPress if they've been created. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing you. A little better.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm not using my microphone. Feedback, I think my issue is a little bit, but I want to know what you're saying.
Okay, I'm sorry, Lisa. Can I get you to type that in because I'm still having a hard time hearing your words.
Okay.
We're waiting for Lisa to type her question, and then we have a couple more as well, and I will bring us back to some that we had earlier.
Okay. Let's see, what else do we have that we can address? Oh, it's okay, Lisa. She said that she didn't want to disrupt the flow, but no, it's not disrupting the flow at all. Actually, I see a question that we could demonstrate, I think. Let me see if I can find it again. How would you do the same functions, for example, tag-id.php in the editor? Okay, so this is very specific, but let's try it. So let's say I'm going to create a tag and I'm going to call it test, slug of test, and I'm going to add it. So the ID is going to be 7, it looks like. So now I want to go and apply this, maybe 3 posts to have that taxonomy or tag specifically. Okay, did that. So now those 3 posts all have tags, that tag. So now in my theme, let's see, I can get this in the right place because we're using a different theme now. So, okay. All right, in my theme, I've got my 2022 child, and I'm going to create a templates directory. And within that templates directory, I am going to add a tag -7.html. I'm pretty sure that's right. Okay, there's nothing in it right now. Let's see if I did that right. So now if I go back to editor, and I go into templates, you can go to tag 7. Okay, I'm going to inherit that. Let's go and look at one of those posts. Let's see. I'm not saving it. I did. Let's do what I did wrong. So I'm getting a blank white page, which means it's probably pulling it from the file, but not the change edit that I made. So, oh, because I didn't actually choose. There we go. Let's see if that does it. There we go. All right. And so theoretically, let me go get rid of that image because it's making it very hard to see. So that again, refresh it. And theoretically, what this should show us is just those 3 posts. 1, 2, 3, and it doesn't. Okay. Maybe need to change this. Oh, inherit query from template. That's what I want. Load it, and now it's only showing those 3 posts. So that's how you would do that. You would create the file in your theme with the right naming convention for WordPress to identify that as the specific tag file for tag ID of 7. Or you could use the slug of test in this case. And then once you've created the file, then you can actually go ahead and use the site editor to edit it. And then if you wanted to get the content back out in order to add to your file, you can export your theme files and then replace what's in your theme. So it can be, so if we go back to, there's a question, is it slug instead of ID? So it can be either. So it can be, so if we look at tag archive, we can do tag slug or tag ID. So it'll look for the slug first. If it doesn't find the slug, then it's going to look for the ID, which is that number. And then it's just going to use the generic tag and then archive and then index. So the biggest difference between the way it would have been in a classic theme and the way it is in a block theme is that the file structure is different. That instead of having a tag-7.php file in the root of your theme, you have a tag-7.html file in the templates directory within your theme. All right, so let's see. This makes me want to do a social learning space on query loops. Yes, that would be very cool. And I think we have had some, haven't we, Sarah? I'm pretty sure. No? Oh,
Not yet.
well, all right. That may be coming soon. We're going to be looking for some new stuff to do when this series is over. So that would be a really great one. And I know some, but I don't know all of it. So we can all explore it together. It'll be kind of a fun way to go. Let's see. So question I see, how closely will the block theme mirror this? Naming conventions like category slug.html. Yeah, I think that I just answered that. So tags category is the same basically as tags. So, and other taxonomies as well. So if you look at the hierarchy, we've got the category -slug, category -id, and category. Same, and the same would be for custom taxonomy, going term, which is the slug, the taxonomy, which is the ID, and then going to taxonomy. And then I see, how are people requesting pages that don't have a template? So if there is no template, then it's going to default back using this hierarchy. So singular page, it's going to look for, ooh, these are a little trickier to explain. So if it's set to a custom, so we have a static page, then we have a page template, and there's a split here. It can either be a custom template if one has been selected within that post metadata, or a default template if one has not. So you could either have that custom.html type of a scenario where you're saying this is going to be a page template that can be selected for pages, or it's going to look for the slug, the ID, and then the generic page template. So you'll see that slug ID generic is kind of like the way that the order that it will look in. So there's a, let me make sure I've gotten earlier questions. Okay, so for schema to work, is there anything I need other than a theme.json file? So for schema to work, you need to be using a IDE or text editor, basically, that supports the schema. VS Code is one. PHP Storm is another. And Sublime may have it, and I can't remember any others off the top of my head. So, but what you get, if I go into the JSON here, you'll see I have the schema line here. And what that allows me to do is, if I go within any of these, I can start typing the quotation marks to start it, and it'll bring up anything I haven't already given it. So in this case, no blocks have been registered in the settings. So then I could go in and I could start, just keep going in or going in further to select the things that are available. That's how it works in VS Code. I have actually not tried other editors with this so far, and it is Visual Studio. It is a Microsoft product. It is free to use. It's very commonly used by developers. To collapse the code in VS Code, I see a question about that. On the left here, there are arrows. Anywhere that's going to be like identified by the editor as a collapsible area, you can click this little arrow when it's pointed down. If you click on it, it collapses it, and if you click on it again, then it expands it.
We have about 5 minutes, Stacey, just so you know.
Okay, I'm just trying to get through the questions, but I feel like we've gotten about as far as we're going to get for today. Is there an extension for collapsing code? I don't think that requires an extension for that. Different editors are going to have different features already built in, and then the ability to extend from there. Yes, Lisa, I don't know why you wouldn't be getting the schema in. I didn't think that, I thought it was just out of the box. So I don't remember installing anything on my machine to add it, but this line
that's a pretty
needs to be
common
there.
IDE thing for to be able to collapse anything that's nested.
Yeah, I think she was talking about schema though, that it was not pulling the schema in. Didn't think the theme JSON is a part of the theme, so it doesn't stick if you change themes. The theme JSON is part of your theme. It is a file that is stored within your theme, so it would not carry over to another theme. Can we have another session where we create the HTML files that will take the place of the standard hierarchy templates. Yes, that's basically what I'm hoping to do next week, is to take the files that we've started to create from within WordPress and export them. It's actually a feature in the block editor to export these templates.
And it will be a feature to export the theme.json template, just not yet.
Eventually. Yes, I look forward to that. Oh, that would be a great day when that is all bundled right in and you effectively can build everything within WordPress and then hit export and get a theme at the end. That would be so cool. We're close. We're close. Just if we had the theme.json file included in that, it would be pretty awesome. Right. Did I miss any other burning questions, or maybe we can try to grab them for the next week? No. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming today. I hope that you learned something and we can continue to explore it next week. And we'll get that scheduled this afternoon from our end.
You always
Have a
have
great
such
day.
lively debates, y'all, and such great questions. Thank you to everyone who is helping us to answer these questions, those of you who are asking the questions. Like, we really just appreciate your time and your experience and sharing what you know. So thank you. All right. Have a good day, everybody. I will post that link in the comments section of this social meetup space on meetup.com. So have a good one.